Well, welcome everybody to today's podcast. It is a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining in and for tuning in. Today I'm joined by Michael, who's a part of our business development team at Parkway. And we also have Doug Gould, Worship MD, in the place to be.
Yeah.
Keep rhyming forever. I used to be a rapper, but yes, welcome Doug to the podcast. Thanks for joining us and making the time, man. I know you just got a lot going on, I'm sure, but I know that it's also been crazy during COVID for the whole industry. So it's so good to still be able to connect with people who we normally see, whether it be at conferences or wherever we meet up. And it's just so good to see your face and to just join us today. But before we jump in to today's topic, I wanted to find out, like, how was your guys' weekend? How you guys doing? What's new?
What did I do this weekend?
Yeah, Doug.
I did absolutely nothing. I've been under quarantine.
So, Doug, where are you located?
I have Wheels on Meals actually coming to my house now.
Man, that's nice.
No, we went to Texas. We went to Texas last week to see my daughter in Austin.
Oh, nice.
Anybody coming back from Texas to New Jersey has to self-quarantine for 14 days, which is really a stupid thing because self-quarantine means I can still go to the grocery store. I can go to the pharmacy. I can go eat at an outdoor restaurant. So what is that?
That is weird. I
really appreciate you contacting me in the bunker and
Yeah.
helping me to escape for this brief time.
I'm going to withhold all my political comments.
Yes, please do. Please do. I'm so done with it, honestly.
I know, me too.
But Michael, how was your weekend, man?
It's pretty good. I got my lawn mowed. Just took me a couple weeks to get to.
Nice. Also, it was
It was bad.
It was long.
It was bad. Yeah.
Is it brown or is it green?
No, it's green.
Okay,
I got sprinklers.
Okay. I know.
Yeah.
It's been really dry here in Michigan.
Yeah.
So if you don't have,
I have a shallow well, so I don't pay for the water, which is really nice.
We have the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, buddies.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I served at my church Sunday morning.
Nice.
And it was awesome.
Same here. Doug, were you at church on Sunday?
We do home church now.
Okay, nice. How's that been going?
Actually, pretty good because some of the churches in New Jersey, and I imagine there's a lot like this in Michigan too, are of a different theological persuasion than I am. And so I rely on the word.
Yeah.
So we're watching like some cool videos by like Ravi Zacharias or John Pike or Matt Chandler from Village Church in Texas.
Oh, good.
We're watching some
of those guys.
Lottie Baum, who's a great pastor from Africa. And when my daughter was still here, we were having conversations in prayer and singing around the piano ourselves. But
yeah. Well, shout out to Ravi Zachariah, by the way, and his legacy and what he left behind. I think we've all learned from him or been impacted by him, and that was just really sad news to like kind of start the year off with.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But on a lighter, but on a lighter note, like let's definitely. Well, Doug, before we jump in, for anybody who may not have heard the first episode that you did with us, why don't you give us a little bit of your background real quick, just like a ninja.
Like a ninja. After I got out of the Navy, I was an assistant to a hand surgeon for 4 years. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And then 22 years old, looking at 8 years of medical school and college, even if I could get through it, somebody asked me, do you want to be in a rock band? And I said, yeah. So that whole doctor thing went out the window. So I was in a rock band from 22 to 30. 8 years I played professionally in different cover rock bands and stuff around the Northeast. And then I got saved at 30. Got married, had to find a real job, couldn't stay in the rock band because I was married now. And my life had changed. My worldview had changed. So I got a job in a music store. And then I got a job as a rep in New England for JBL and Soundcraft and some other things. And then I became the EMU sales manager for the Eastern North America. EMU made synthesizers and samplers. I'm a keyboard
Mm-hmm.
player, so it was right up my alley. That only lasted a year. Then I went to Tascam for 10 years as regional manager for Tascam, Eastern States. And then that job ended on 9/11,
Oh, wow.
2001. I got canned in November of 2001. I got married in December of 2001.
Wow.
And when I
Wow.
got married, I had told my wife, I said, look, I don't have a job anymore. I had this job for 10 years and she had 6 kids and I had 2. I said, maybe we should postpone this thing. And she says, you ain't getting out of that this easy. I got 6 kids. So
You
I got
locked
married.
you in.
I
She
got married
locked
with
you
no
in.
job, no job in a new house. That's big. And like 5 months later, after all my severance and everything was gone from my bank account, Sure hired me. They hired me to be the U.S. Market Development Manager. That was a God gift because Sure didn't care where I went to develop business. So I went to the church. And for 7 years at Sure, all I did was dedicate myself to helping church volunteers, writing content, doing conferences like 30, 40 a year. And then the hammer came down in 2009 from Sure. They thought they had gotten all they could from me. And I was very appreciative of the time they gave me because when they let me go, I still had 25 events left on the calendar that they were supposed to do. And they said, we're not doing them. Call all these people up and tell them you're not coming. So I called them all up. They said, Doug, we never cared about Sure. Can you get here to teach? And a light came on. And I said, I got 25 events. I wonder if some other vendors and manufacturers might be willing to subsidize this ministry, because I considered it a ministry, even though a secular company was paying for it. And AT came on board immediately. Then PreSonus, then Avion, then Westone. And over the 11 years I've been in business, I've had Korg, I've had Ultimate Ears, I've had Earthworks, I've had all kinds, PreSonus, lots of companies come and go. And now my clients are Yamaha, Audix mics, and I think D'Addario is going to be coming on very soon.
That's awesome. That's
So,
Nice.
you know, when events were happening, I was doing about 30, 40 events a year. And that's kind of all come to a close. The first event I will be doing next will be Experience Conference in Orlando in about 2 weeks.
Oh,
The
yeah.
last
Sunshine.
was in March. That's the last event I did. So I've been furloughed.
Wow.
I even had Martin Guitars for 3 years. They had to let me go. Earthworks had to let me go because their budget was cut. Anyway, that's what I do. I'm not a seller. I don't sell equipment. I'm an educator. I pray with people. I'm all about relationships, especially with small church guys.
Yeah.
I've written blogs and articles for a variety of companies. I teach at Sweetwater Gear Fest, not just church events. I write for Full Compass. I write for Share Faith Magazine. I wrote for Worship Tech Director. And so I've kind of like had this niche of being a market development guy for worship. And if manufacturers want to get into that market, my name usually comes up somewhere along the line in the conversation. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing all that, Doug.
Awesome.
Giving us your background. I think it's very important for people to understand where you come from, your experience, what you've been kind of through, because there's a lot of wisdom behind that. We met probably 15 years ago, somewhere in that range, maybe 14,
Yeah.
and you know, that was very influential on my life as an audio engineer. Just being around you and a bunch of other leaders in the industry that really were a part of different manufacturers and conferences and teaching breakouts and really educating the local church. And so I'm a product of that. And so I'm forever grateful for your influence and for your friendship, even to this day. And coming on and doing this podcast. So thank you so much for doing that. But as you know, Doug, I'm an audio guy by trade first before any of the other stuff that I've done in churches, whether it's pro lighting, pro video. But so is Michael. Michael, who is a part of our team. He was a chief audio engineer for over a decade, right? At Central.
Yep.
And
Yep. To the day almost.
yeah, and he was also a studio guy, a recording studio guy, and went to Full Sail, all that. So this topic is so within our DNA, so to speak. So we're just gonna have a lot of fun, and I think it's called Steps to Better Sound. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
They're just some really simple things to think about without being overly technical. And really, the underlying theme is relationships. The more that we can get along with people, know how we work together, what our strengths are, that's really going to help things work a lot better than you just being the technical guru that you might think you have to be to do this. It really depends on people around us to get things done, right? And you can't do it all yourself. You're going to burn out.
Yeah, it's a relational position as much as anything else in life.
So anyway.
All right, great. Well, why don't we dive into the topic then? And so we're going to allow you to take over. And I think for you to be able to show some of the content you're going to have, I'm going to need to make you the host here. So let me go ahead and switch that over to you. Are you allowed to share right now?
Looks like it.
Okay, well then go for it.
No, host is disabled. So.
Oh, I disabled
host
you.
Is disabled.
I have all the power. All right, let me
I
see.
don't want to be the host.
Let my people go, Christian.
All right, I'm going to make you the host.
Try it now.
Change host, and you are good to go.
Boom.
Okay. Let's see. I got to go back to the beginning, eh?
Oh, you're at the, yeah.
Okay. Steps to better sound.
All right, everybody take a
swig.
and now we're
big gulp.
And now we're good.
Brought to you by Doug Gould and Worship MD.
Brought to you by Gatorade Zero. Okay.
Just want to thank Yamaha and Audix for giving me some money to do this. Because the unemployment is running low.
No, it is not.
Go buy Audix, people. Support Doug.
Yes, buy Audix, buy Yamaha. Okay.
Thank you. I hope you guys are dealers for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah,
What
do you got for us today, Doug?
So let's start with what I just described as the underlying theme to all of this stuff is relationships are the key. And I'm not going to read the whole quote. If somebody wants this PowerPoint, all they have to do is email me. I'll send them the PowerPoint.
So I'm not seeing the PowerPoint right now on my screen.
How come?
I don't know.
I do not see it either. It's
good.
coming. Stand by, people.
Stand by guests.
We are audio guys, not graphic operators.
Why not? No wonder.
Have you started using ProPresenter 7 yet?
Screen sharing has failed to start. Please try again later. Let's try this. Share.
Maybe stop sharing and then reshare. But yeah, ProPresenter 7, man, that thing is deep. Like just to make like a simple change, like we used to in ProPresenter 6, you really have to it's like new. It's like different. Are you guys using that yet over at Central, Michael?
I don't believe they have switched over yet.
Yeah, that's going to be probably a big undertaking for you guys being such a large.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know what this is. One participant can share at a time.
Huh.
Multiple participants can share simultaneously.
Oh, so it's not allowing you to share right now.
Let's see here.
There we go. Yep.
Hey, now I see it.
Go full screen. Bam. Yeah.
There it is.
Love it. All right, here we go.
I'm not even a video guy. Okay, so relationships. You want a good idea of how to treat people on your team? Just read Philippians 2:1-11. It's my mantra. Consider others more important than yourself. Consider their needs more important than yours. And I always use this little anecdote. Was running sound one Sunday and was really frantic. Everybody was late. Nobody was on time. Everything was rushed. You ever have those Sundays?
Oh yeah.
Trying to get it all
never
done.
have.
You're kind of frenzied. People that are supposed to be there are not showing up. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And the 15-year-old kid grabs my sleeve and he's crying. He goes, Mr. Gould, can you talk to me for a minute? And he's on my team. And my first inclination was, can't you see I'm busy? We got to get things done here. but the kid was obviously distressed, crying. I said, look, we're really in a hurry right now. I promise you, as soon as I can get to you, we'll go sit down somewhere. I'll even take you to lunch. We'll talk about it. He goes, okay. So we met after church. The kid was beaten up again by his father. He just wanted somebody to talk to. And you have to make the decision, whatever role you're in, are you a tech or are you a pastor?
Yep.
We're all
Yeah,
pastors.
that's a big deal.
We're supposed to shepherd our people.
Yep.
We're supposed to feed and nurture them. And if nobody else is taking care of the sheep, I have to.
Right.
So that's the deal. So read Philippians 2, read 1 Corinthians 12 about being part of a body. You're one body. You're just a part of it. But if somebody's hurting in the body, you got to help them not to hurt so the rest of the body can function.
I absolutely agree. That's something that I go over all the time with teams, is that you don't know what people are going through when they come through your doors that serve on your team, right?
Yeah.
There could be a marriage that is falling apart, a family that can't afford to feed their kids, a kid that's getting bullied at school. And yet when they come in through our doors, do they experience something different?
Right.
Or is it just like every other place that they go to? Or are we going to take the time to actually love each other, get to know each other, and be with each other, and be a family, so to speak? So yeah, I love that example that you just shared, because that's real. That's real life. So yeah, all the church stuff is great, but we got to understand that it impacts real people, and so relationships, like you said, are key. I love that, Doug. I love that you opened up with that.
And then the other thing is the personality types that we are. Techs are typically introverted. They're not going to discuss a lot of the things they have. Some of them are kind of loners, isolationists. They're kind of nerdy, a lot of them. Where the musicians on the stage are probably the opposite of that.
Right.
Well, and a lot of those introverts will open up over time. You know,
Yeah.
I had plenty of those guys as volunteers, and you know, week after week they'd help me wire the stage or set up the console or whatever. And those relationships and meaningful conversations were happening all the time.
Yeah, that's
You
important.
know,
I mean, big sure, for instance, I had to take a personality and a psychological test before I was hired.
Oh, wow.
We wanted to find out what type of personality you were. So when you're put with a team, they're not going to have all visionaries. They're going to want some implementers too.
Yep. You need people in the weeds, right?
You want to put unlike people together so they form a more cohesive, strengthened team, because you're not all the same kind.
Yeah.
All these creatives, and there's nobody who wants to organize anything.
Right. Nothing gets done. Like, you're really creative and inspiring, but nobody heard about it.
Right. All right, we're ready for next slide.
Next.
Prepare and organize. And before anything else, preparation is the key to success. Because if you fail to prepare, you're preparing for failure.
Yep.
Right?
it's true.
I absolutely agree.
It's a little list of things here, and you guys can chime in on any of these things that you might see here. One thing I always kind of harp on is labeling the inputs on the mixer, labeling cables, having a patch diagram of things, knowing where things are necessary in case I need to get to them quickly. What's the backup plan if the wireless mic fails? Do I have a wired mic on the stage that I can point the pastor to?
Yeah.
Are the batteries charged? Are the instruments tuned? Have the heads been changed on the drums? Those kinds.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. There's all those things. There should be like a plan, a schedule, so to speak, of when are we going to change the heads on the drums, right? What's the to-do list when everybody walks in on a rehearsal night or on Sunday morning? Not or on Sunday morning, but on Sunday morning. What are the things that need to be done? And they should be checked off. It should be like clockwork, right? It shouldn't be a surprise. So that when things that do come up as a surprise, like that speaker stopped working all of a sudden, you can focus on that and not on all the other things that should have already been taken care of. So I love this. Yeah. You shouldn't be figuring out what the service is going to look like right before the service starts. I love that, and so the more prepared you could be ahead of time, the better. Michael, what are some of the things that you've used to kind of help yourself as, the main audio engineer to make sure that you're prepared for a Sunday morning?
Yeah, every time that let me think. Do I have a backup plan? That's a big deal. There was a time when we did have a system failure, so we ended up buying a backup processor, and I had to put in writing. You open up the back of the rack, there's a piece of paper there that says, okay, if this fails, plug this in, plug that in, plug that in, and turn it on. And then that was already pre-programmed so that if that system processor went down, it took, only a couple minutes to get it back up again.
That's great.
You know, but put everything in writing. It's very easy nowadays with like Google Docs. Put an Excel sheet up there. You can edit it in real time. Um, and as a huh?
And with Planning Center, I mean,
Oh yeah.
song arrangements, order of service, who's leading what's happening next. Like, there should be no guesswork.
My whole goal as an audio guy on staff was to try and replace myself. Like somebody should be able to walk in and pick up where I left off with some degree of education.
Sure.
But the things like the system processor, the things like having all the microphones labeled. I always like to put the names of the people who were on stage that week. Actually, put their names on the microphone with a printout, sticky label printer.
Yeah, and
always
another
like
simple thing to do alongside what you're saying, Michael, is the way they're laid out on my console should be the way they're laid out when I see them on the stage, so that it's easier to, know who is who versus like, vocal one being all the way over here. And when she picks up her microphone, like, I'm like, oh, which mic is it again?
yeah. I think that depends on your relationship. I didn't always lay them out per stage view, I guess, but if I didn't know the person, I would.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I knew who the team was pretty closely.
Yeah.
There's some small churches that we had that, the mixers weren't large or anything. They didn't have digital scribble strips on them or anything.
Yeah.
A lot of times they got tired of board tapes and writing things out. So they started color coding like the microphones.
Yeah,
So
that's smart.
red microphone is red. The blue one is blue. But simple things like that. And then I also think along with this, you have to, when you're putting your teams together, you have to recruit people who are going to be committed to it. And there should be some accountability to what they're going to be expected to do, when they're to show up, when they can leave. That's why first and last out is called Philo.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You got to expect that you're going to be here before the band shows up, and you're going to be here well after they're gone.
Yep.
And if you're not willing to do that, I know you're talented, but I'm really looking for committed people who want to be part of this team, and anyway.
No, that's great, Doug.
Yeah. Organization. I like that, the batteries thing. Man, with some of the new products out, like Shure and Audio Technica have charging docks. I always was a proponent of, if a piece of equipment doesn't have a home, it'll get lost.
Right.
Some of these charging docks, you can tell the musician to put it back when he's done with it, and then you take the responsibility off yourself.
Absolutely.
So there's tons of little things like that.
Yeah, and there was one thing I always remember too, called the strike. When you're striking all the equipment and wrapping the cables, that's actually the first step of setup. The way I wrap a cable at the end of a set is going to determine how long it's going to take me to unwind that thing once I get to the next thing. So I think you should have a video on how to over under, so.
Yep.
My wife wraps over under.
Does she?
Just so you know.
Oh, I got to tell my wife, man. My wife does not know over under. I just recently, I always feel bad. So I just did an event in downtown Grand Rapids. And after the event, there's a bunch of people who want to help. Like, oh, what do you need? The great hearts, and they just want to help you out. And there were a few. I'm like, do you know over under? Yes. Do you know over under? Yes. Okay, you guys do. Grab these cables. And then there were, what else do you need? What else do you need? Do you know over under? No. Why don't you work on that electrical cable? 100
We don't care about power cords.
No, we do, but it's
Yeah.
all in jest. But that is a big deal though, because when we go to get the cables out again, they're just gonna, they're not gonna be all coiled up, and we
Oh yeah.
impacted by the way people wrap them up. So
Okay. Ready?
let's keep
Yeah.
going.
Keep going.
Know your routing, your inputs, your outputs. I don't know if you know this, but ins don't go to ins.
Yes,
Ins go to
Yeah.
outs.
absolutely.
Outs go to ins.
Right.
Unless you're a
With
DMX
audio,
cable.
it's
Unless you're a
also
lighting guy.
mixture. No political statements, please.
No.
Yes.
There are transgender jacks now. Babylon B had a thing called, the headline said, a male guitar jack identifies as female.
I'm voting for Asteroid 2020, by the way.
Wow, that is crazy. Babylon B sometimes, man. They got some zingers, man.
Yeah.
I'm
Did you
sorry.
hear that? There's an asteroid coming the day before the election.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're really?
Supposed to
No.
either
I
strike
thought
by or
Armageddon would come first, but
yeah.
Anyway, there's just some simple diagrams here. I would suggest making a diagram at your church of how your system is patched so that people who replace you or substitute for you will have a kind of an idea how things are wired in case something goes wrong or awry. They know how to get to it, where it is. It's labeled like you had with your backup processor. I mean, those are all things that are critical. And in writing, it really helps. Have a little binder right by the console, all the owner's manuals of things, phone numbers for service guys if they need to get in touch, rental companies, all that stuff. Inventory. What mics do we own? Oh, we own 18 SM58s, and that's it. Okay, you do your choir with SM58s?
Yeah.
Maybe you should talk up to the pastor about getting some money for some condensers, right? I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Easy experience.
Anyway, what is the flow? Signal flow. How the signal gets from the stage to the eventual output. What are the travel paths it has to go through in a mixer? Do you know what all those paths are? They're called buses.
Yes.
Do you know what pre-fade means? Do you know what post-fade means? Do you know how the subwoofer is wired? Is it an aux-fed sub or is it from something else?
And what's interesting about this, Doug, is that with all the digital consoles that are out there now, it's almost like you don't need to know everything, right? Everything is kind of pre-done for you, so you don't need a visual. But I think that it's so important for people still to go through this process and still to have some sort of layout, stage plots, system configurations, input lists, but like not just an input list where it's like input 1 is Mary, input 2 is kick. That input list should also say input 1 is a kick, it's a D6, and it's a dynamic microphone, doesn't need phantom power, any notes, where does it need to be placed, that sort of thing. So you have everything detailed out so that there's no guesswork for a volunteer specifically.
Right.
When I'm thinking about a volunteer, I'm thinking, how am I going to set you up for success, right? There should be nothing, people work 40, 50, 60 hours a week and they serve at my church. How am I going to set you up for success so that when you walk in, you're not having to do all this guesswork and figuring out all these things and use all this brain power that's going to stress you out, and it's going to be a little bit overwhelming for somebody who just left their job working 60 hours a week. And so I think these sorts of things really go a long way in honoring your team. Just like you were talking about earlier, that it's about relationships and we are here for each other. It's not just about getting a job done.
Well, this is an analog approach to things, obviously. With digital mixers, you have other things to concern yourself with. It's fine if somebody saves scenes, but try to recall something that wasn't saved the week before is impossible. And you also have things like AVB and Dante patching now that really confuse the hell out of a lot of people. So
yeah, some of the best
corrupted a Dante patching scheme, and it's like, how do I get the ear monitor to work?
Right. Some of the best training that I've done is actually guys that owned a analog console, and we switched them to digital, and that analog console was still sitting on the pew next to the new one. And it was so easy to go ahead and teach these guys, and these are very inexperienced volunteers,
Right.
and say, okay, this is your gain. Now you flip your faders to send your mix bus. Well, that's your aux send over here.
Right.
But then you try to train people on a digital console as a new person. It's quite overwhelming because they don't have that basic signal flow understanding.
Right.
Yeah, like on an analog, you have like 32 faders, and there's a fader for each thing. But this LS9 has 16, and I got to go to page 2 for the second 32.
Right.
Then if I'm on the wrong page and I think it's the kick drum, but it's actually the monitor mix, and I just blew the ears out of the worship leader because I was on the wrong page. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All the time. And I'm not pro analog, pro digital. I'm not trying to say
No, it's just knowing your signal flow.
digital it's the same thing. If you know the terms on this, you'll know the terms on that.
Right.
Right. They're just the ergonomics are different. So you got to get past that.
All the tools are still there. They're just in a different spot.
Right. What's a matrix? People always ask me, what do I use a matrix for? You can use it for anything.
Yeah.
The Swiss Army knife. I can turn a stereo into a mono. I can make mono stereo. I can use it for in-ear mixes. I can use it for broadcast, use it for fills. I can use it for my main mix.
Absolutely.
But no, I don't know what a matrix is. It's like the red pill or the blue pill. Which one do I take?
Right. No, and that's all part of the process. You learn, and that's the thing, is that people need to understand that it's a journey.
Yeah.
You're not going to come in and understand everything at one night of training. You're not going to understand everything after going to one workshop by Doug. It's going to be a lifetime of dedicating yourself to an art form, because that's what it is at the end of the day, and understanding systems. You have to understand color, right? And what different colors do before you can paint a beautiful mural, right? So there's a lot of education that goes into your art form, and you have to understand all of this kind of stuff before you can have the incredible success in mixing audio. And so,
well, Michael knows the difference between me and him is that I was from the school of hard knocks. Everything I learned was from the street. I don't have a college degree. I don't have any degree except high school.
Yeah, same here.
You went to Full Sail. So after graduation, how much did you learn after you graduated?
I learned a lot more after I graduated.
Exactly. That's the point.
You
learn through life experiences.
Full Sail was an amazing experience, but it was very short. It got me enough to whet my appetite.
To know that you wanted to pursue it, right?
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. Pastors asked me why the sound system is so important.
I love this.
But that's all
I do too.
I don't even speak. I just go to the word and I point it out. I go, well, this is what he says.
So you should buy this.
How much do we need to spend? Well, how much do you want him to hear?
I love it.
I always tell people the pastor has two tools. One is his microphone. The other is his Bible. One is really not good without the other in a church setting.
It is. I might as well be watching American Idol in some of the churches I've been seeing. So I don't know. We're in a different time right now where it's not just secular people that are divided. The church is actually divided right now, but we're not going to talk about that. I'm going to go to the next.
No, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Before you EQ anything, if you don't know what EQ is, we'll talk about it in a minute.
Yes, we will.
But equalizing things, maybe it's not necessary if you just take some time to put the right microphone in the right place.
Preach.
And don't be afraid to move it. If it can sound better somewhere else, just don't set a mic up willy-nilly and then sit behind your console and twiddle knobs. Get off your butt, go up and move it around, or have somebody on the stage, which is even better, move the mic around the kick drum until you find the sweet spot.
Yes.
Or point it down or more angled. or change axis, move it further, closer. You're
Or
going to
maybe
find a better spot if that microphone is anywhere near the right microphone. If it's not, then throw that mic away and get something else if you have the ability to do that.
Yes.
And some churches don't have very sophisticated mic lockers. I know that. So do the best with what you have, but there's going to be a spot that mic's going to sound better on that particular vocal or instrument than where you just decided to put it willy-nilly.
Let's not forget that we do tune drums as well to get them to sound the best before we put a mic on it.
Yeah. Listen to the source before you mic it up. I absolutely agree with this, and I talk about it over and over and over and over again at every training that I do with every church that I serve at. Is before you touch the EQ, go listen to the source and then make whatever adjustments you need to make in order for that to sound the best that it can through the sound system. And in this particular case, we're talking about microphones. And I just cannot stress this point enough. If the microphone is not in the right place on your pastor's face, it's never going to sound right. Right. So you need to place it where it needs to be. The same thing with the vocalist. If they're always doing this, pulling the microphone all the way away like this, it's never going to sound right. So you need to coach them through that. And again, this is all going back to that relational thing that you talked about earlier, Doug. You know, and sometimes drummers are like, no, I know where to place the microphones on my drums. I'm like, hey man, you know, and you collaborate on that. And so all that to say is that I totally, absolutely agree with this. And I cannot stress this point enough, is that how important it is to always check the source, tune your drums, tune your guitars, because if the source is not good, it will never sound good coming out of the speakers.
Warm up your voice. Yeah.
Yes.
Michael, anything?
No, I think you guys hit it.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Less is more with microphones. People think that if I put 8 mics on a 12-voice choir, it's going to sound like the Georgia Mass Choir because I got more mics on them. But you just turn them into a bunch of Mickey Mouse choir.
That's true.
There's things called comb filtering, which people don't understand. But when you have microphones at different distances from the same source, they cancel each other out. And it leaves big holes, big nulls, in other words. It sounds very vague. It happens with a pastor who's got maybe a head worn and he walks behind a pulpit mic, and I got 2 mics at different distances picking him up. Just turn one of them off. It'll fix it. I don't care which one. You decide. Use as many as necessary, you know, but I don't know. Sometimes the fewer, the better. Less mics usually sounds better than more mics most of the time. And also remember to mute open microphones when they're not being used. Those open mics are just going to pick up stage sound and all other kinds of things. So you might have mute groups on your digital board. If you don't, then just mute the ones that aren't being used that you see nobody singing into right now. And if you had an arrangement written ahead of time, you might know when certain people are going to come in and come out of the tune. You might not know that at all. You might not even know what song they're doing. So if you see somebody not used, sax player is not playing right now, mute his mic. He's not playing every note, I hope, with the worship band, you know, in unison with the singers. Na, 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 na. Mute that guy.
Yes. No, I love this. Yes, the muting thing is huge, but the unmuting is also just as important.
Yes.
So one of the things that I always like to establish with a team that I'm working with is I always, you know how you have like people who are always doodling, you know, they're always, you know, I'm doing sound check and your electric guitarist is just going and playing something and just messing around. I'm like, hey, calm down. And we're just doing the vocals right now. But what I always tell the band, you know, when you have your 5-minute countdown right before service starts, I tell them once 30 seconds hits, nobody play anything. Okay. If you're going to tune, you're going to tune. But between 30 seconds and 0, I'm going to unmute you guys and you're going to be live. And we still have the pre-service music playing and whatever's happening, you know, and so we're just going to want to have you guys ready to go so that I can, you know, you guys can start playing and then I'll fade the music out so it seems like a smooth transition. So I'm always unmuting and when to mute and when to unmute is so important to the dynamics of a service, but also towards being effective in whatever we're trying to communicate to the people that are there to receive, right? So if somebody goes up on stage and they're going to speak and the microphone's not on, all of a sudden you're going to take the whole intimate moment that just happened. Say you're coming out of a song and it's really intimate and the pastor's coming up on stage and it's this beautiful moment. Everybody's just on the edge of their seat, ready to receive, and the microphone is not on. It's not unmuted. You just literally, you ruin that moment. And you cannot get that back. Of course, people will be gracious, but that's why we do what we do, is to be impactful.
Right.
What do you guys think about that?
I think that missing a cue is probably the worst thing you can do in a mix situation. You can have a subpar mix. It might be acceptable. It may not be, but that moment right there was grained into my head that you just don't miss mic cues. You know, so practice that. I would say that, knowing your microphones and knowing your pickup patterns, I like this 3-to-1 rule. There was a time at the beginning of my career that I walked into the church and they happened to be miking the choir. This is a 100-voice choir with 8 microphones, 4 for the back row and 4 for the front. It was a 4-tiered choir. And man, I tried everything under the sun for those guys. I tried every manufacturer of microphone over the years. I was never happy with it. I knew I was getting comb filtering and phase interference, so I would move them around. But then I ended up just finally having my team bite the bullet and buy 4 good microphones. And we ended up buying some Earthworks. And that was just amazing. So I went from 8 to 4, and I also got about 6 more dB of gain out of the choir.
Wow.
And I got superior rear rejection from the choir monitors flown up above.
Wow.
And yeah, just so knowing how to use those microphones and knowing those pickup patterns.
I had a 400 voice choir call me and I wasn't sure. Like, I don't know, a god boat full of KSM 32s.
Yeah.
They had 400 voice choir and they bought like, I don't know, 24 mics or something.
Oh my goodness.
So they got them on the choir and they're going, it sounds awful. I says, well, how many mics do you have? And they said 24. I says, on 400 voices, how are they tight? Are they like all over the place? I mean, why do you need that many mics? It's because it's 400 voices. I said, that doesn't tell me anything. So I says, try this. I says, try this. Try turning off every other mic. Just try that and call me back. They call me back. That sounds a lot better. I says, shut off a couple more.
Oh.
They got down to eight mics.
24 to 8.
He said, can we return like the rest of the You have to talk to sales about that.
Yeah.
That's not me. I don't do that.
Well, and there's special events too. Like there was a time that, of course, Christmas brings out the most creative miking techniques. Either you're miking a drum wall or, who knows, buckets. But there was a time we wanted to do a 4-voice quartet on a single microphone around a U87. Well, U87 has omnidirectional pattern.
Right.
Now you got to be careful with the house sound, but that was a situation where if you didn't understand the pickup pattern of that microphone, it was set up for disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even a good cardioid, that's hard to do, but sometimes what I'll use is maybe a bidirectional and put 2 people on each side. That sometimes
you got figure 8.
The null would be right and back, and then the drums would be in back of that. So
the funny thing is, we actually did a whole podcast on microphones, and so head back to episode, I don't know what episode number it was, a microphone podcast with Doug. So check that out.
Our host is moving us on here.
Yes.
Adjusting gain. So get your gains right. Get them in the right ballpark. and it'll require you to move, hopefully, the gain knobs too much during the course of the service. And the only way that can really be done effectively is if you get your talent to sing or play at an appropriate level that what they will do in the service. Some people don't even know how to set gain. There's every mixer that I've ever seen has diagrams and procedures on how to set the gain properly, but they mostly refer to levels with a meter, where what I want them to do is to use their ears. So if I want to make sure my vocal stays on top, this might sound funny, but before I check the drums, I'm checking the vocal. And I'm having her sing a cappella in a voice loud enough that she's going to sing at. And I close my eyes and I listen and I ask myself, is she loud enough in the room right now?
Mm.
And then I look at the meter to see how off my ears are. If she's just barely flickering the meter, I got to get the hearing doctor.
Yeah.
If it's bright red and she's not loud enough, I got to go to the hearing doctor. So use the meter to check your ears.
Right.
Once I have a level established for her, I try to bring the other things underneath that to start with. So it's a pyramid. Vocal on top, it's a priority mic. Foundation is kick, bass, that stuff. Then keyboards, guitars, background vocals. It's the pyramid is like this, right? Mm-hmm. So top, bottom, fill in. And if you don't know how to set gain, your potential for a good mix is going to be pretty much out the window.
Yeah, so when I'm usually normally setting gain, it's going to be during sound check, right? And I know that we're going to touch base on what sound check means and what that is. But whenever I go into a sound check and I'm trying to adjust my gain, I'm doing everything individually. And I also coach the players through it. It's not like, you know, I'm going to tell them, give me kick. And I'm going to tell them, you know, and sometimes, you know, the drummer will just be like, doosh, 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 doosh. I'm like, hey, slow down.
Yeah.
Give me some slow quarter notes.
Right.
Because you want to hear, you know, the whole thing. And so, and I'll do that throughout everything. But before I even start with the drums, because I usually start with drums, I'm going to let the vocalist know, hey, the 4 vocalists that are on this weekend, be ready to sing. You know, either your favorite song or one of your favorite worship songs or secular songs, whatever you want, but you got to be ready, you know, and just coaching them through that process, especially if I'm a guest mixer, right? I'm trying to develop just a relational kind of connection with everybody before we actually get into the sound check, because I'm going to ask them to do certain things. Another great thing that I do, which is relational and kind of ties into the adjusting gain part and the sound check part, is I always encourage the vocalists, you need to eat that microphone unless I tell you otherwise. Like, just make sure you're up on that mic. We clean them, we sanitize them, they smell great. So, and I'm trying to coach them through that as well, because sometimes that can impact the performance, that can impact what I'm receiving from them. And so again, it's very collaborative, you know, and I'm always ready for pushback and ideas that the band is ready to give to me as well during this process. But that is all happening while I'm adjusting the gain during the sound check. So just this adjusting gain, just section, there's so much happening within that itself that I think, you know, people need to be aware of. Audio engineers need to be aware of.
Right.
Well, and to add on to that, a lot of singers that we're dealing with, we're talking about small church volunteers, and they can get pretty timid at times. And it's always a good idea to say, hey, and recognize that and say, hey, you know, whoever the worship leader is, can you just strum some chords for her or him just to, you know, get them more comfortable, you know. So don't be afraid to, during singer sound check, to ask a instrumentalist to join in.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the optimizing of individual channels is the preferred way. But I was suggesting before we even started this thing, sometimes you'll be like at a festival and be one band right after another one.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to give you any time to sound check each mic. So the band just goes on and you're looking at the meters and you're adjusting as you're going, right? So there's lots of ways different people will do different things. There's no hard and fast rule that you should follow. I mean, if it's me, I'm putting a fader up to unity. I'm muting all the other channels, and I'm gaining that mic up or down, whatever it needs. People don't even know what a mic preamp does.
Right.
Microphones are millivolts. They're like tiny little amounts of signal. The mixer is line level. So I got to bring up that microphone level to something that the mixer can even understand. So you don't just turn all these things all the way up
Yeah.
and then do this. You
Well,
find
and this,
optimum spot where that mic is going to be optimized so it's not distorted or has self noise coming through it, right?
You want a sweet spot.
right. This is also, and we'll talk about this in a second, under the assumption that you have a properly calibrated sound system as well.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly.
And if you need
If
that,
system's
you don't know
calibrated,
how to do that.
I might not have to do a lot of EQing or anything like that anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
We can do that for you, by the way.
People are using channel EQ to affect the system.
Oh,
Not for the
Yeah.
mic, right? At least that's what my experience is. I see a lot of that. What's a high pass filter? It's a low cut filter. It cuts the rumble out. It cuts the bass out. It takes the low end out, makes things less muddy. So I would put it initially on every vocal mic just as a routine. Take it off. Acoustic guitars, electric guitars, snare drums, cymbals, especially cymbals with overheads. You can, if you have a variable high pass, you can bring it up way beyond what a fixed high pass would be, which is usually about 100 hertz. I can bring it up to 350, 400 for cymbals. If I'm using them just for the metal. If I'm using them for the overall drum sound, I might not high pass them. But, you know, usually I high pass as much as I can before I touch an EQ.
Yeah, for live audio, I would totally agree with you. For live audio, absolutely. And even in the studio, I'm going to use my high pass filter as well. But yeah, like you were saying, for me personally, I do take more of an organic approach with my drums. So I do high pass my cymbals, but just not as high as I would if I was trying to get just the cymbal sound through my overheads. But yes, I mean, even we were talking earlier, Michael, we even use it on bass sometimes. Keyboards, you know, if I didn't have the chance to have a conversation with a piano player or a keyboard player about them using their left hand on the low frequency notes, I'm going to take my high pass and I'm going to boost that baby up. And then I'll even take a parametric EQ and take a bunch out in that low frequency, those low mids, just to give a little bit of control. Because if not, then I'm not going to have clarity coming from my bass or my kick and even some sub synths that might be happening during the set. But I absolutely agree. Whenever possible, I'm going to use a high pass filter to clean up my sound, because you don't need those frequencies from an acoustic guitar. You just don't.
Yeah, there's been a lot of times where, you know, we put a new sound system in, we put a new mixer in, we put new microphones in, and a lot of times high pass is all you need on the microphones. You know, there's been plenty of times where we've got a great, you know, Shure 87 or a, you know, on a L acoustic sound system, and it's all calibrated and dialed in, and lo and behold, you don't even hardly need to EQ the voice, you know. But yeah, it's a super valuable tool I use on just about everything.
Yep.
Mix with groups, not with inputs. Go in, guys. It's all yours.
So I want you to speak a little bit, Doug, first about the reasoning behind less faders. Can you just speak into that a little bit?
Sure.
Because the way I approach things isn't traditional in this sense. I'm just a little bit, you know how like you have like your things that you do, and they're tried and true. I do agree with this, but the way I approach things can sometimes be a little bit different. So I just want you to speak into your thought pattern.
Let's just take one part of this mix then. Let's just take the drums. You got a worship service going on, and the levels of the drums are going in and out, above, below, whatever, playing soft, playing loud. Do you want to control 8 faders of drum mics? Or would you rather have the overall relative volume of the whole drum kit be on one fader?
I'll take one fader, please.
Yes.
One fader. So up and down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now I don't have to worry about, even if I move them down, am I moving them back to the place they originally were?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
That's very weird. So this is going to just pretty much change the relative levels of wherever these things are.
Yes.
Now, let's go for background vocals. Let's go for multiple guitars, multiple keyboards, loops. If I have these things on individual faders that control a group of channels rather than all of those channels, it's going to be way less intimidating, especially for a guy who doesn't know what the heck he's doing.
Right.
He's going to get overwhelmed as soon as the vocals start getting washed out. He's going to start pulling things down and trying to put them back. And this just maintains a lot more ease of mixing. It's less confusing.
Yeah. Let me also say this, Doug. Oh, sorry, Michael. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all good.
Like with drums, you know, I don't want to be worrying about the faders because I'm already worrying about the dynamics during a set. Right. So for example, say I have gates on my toms, right? And it goes from, you know, the drummer just smashing those toms to get the full tone, and he's doing these fills or, you know, whatever he needs to do for the set. But then it gets into this intimate moment. Like at the last church I worked at, we would always have this prayer time where a pastor from on staff would come on stage, and they would kind of go through these prayer cards and talk about, you know, we're going to pray together and encourage our people. And the band is still playing behind that person, but softly. Now, all of a sudden, the settings, the threshold that I have on my gates, on my drums, I have to worry about those. I actually will turn them off so that I can hear them, right? I'd rather be worrying about that than worrying about the levels of all these individual mics on the drum set when I have just one fader I can rely on for volume, like you have here on this slide. So
That's right. I'm going to ask you about gates.
Right.
Gates. I can date an 18-year-old kid who plays at 118 dB all day long. He's easy.
Yeah.
The jazz guy who's doing ghost rolls and little finesse things. You think I'm ever going to gate that guy?
Right.
Nope.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
In fact, the old-time analog guys that I learned from hardly ever use dynamic. They might put one compressor on the whole kit.
Yeah, on the group.
It just tightens it up. It tightens the kit up.
It's cohesive. Yeah, it makes it
cohesive.
It's a
tonal thing too. Some things, the tone of certain gates really has a magic to it, you know. And so I'm not a gate fan unless the kid needs to be gated.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
I absolutely agree with you.
There's other things you can use too, like downward expanders, which is a gate in essence, but it works like in a kind of an opposite way.
Yeah.
It drops below the threshold and starts shutting off gradually, you know.
Yep.
You can do it in the gate too, I guess, but gates are usually more on-off things.
They are.
But the people that I teach, Christian and Michael, they don't even know what dynamics are. They don't know what a compressor is. They don't know what a gate is. I mean, you could do a whole webinar just on that.
Well,
you could do a series of webinars.
Yeah, well, the whole point I was getting behind it, having the one fader option allows you to be more musical. Right? So instead of me worrying about just levels, now I'm like in it with the band, and I'm worrying about, you know, other things outside of just these faders all over here. So
and to piggyback off of that situation, what I tell a lot of people is, I use an all band VCA or a group or VCA, depending on what it is, because when that pastor or announcements comes up and that band is playing behind, you can bring them down 6 dB and you can bring your announce mic up all in 2 faders. So
you even see one group I have here, Michael. It's called Band. I just have a band on that one. And
I always have that on whatever I'm mixing on.
And a lot of people get misconstrued too. They think that this is going to, that they don't have any effect on the individuals anymore once they use groups. That's not true.
Right.
If my kick is not loud enough when I pull the drums down, I just go over and push the kick up a little bit.
Right.
It's still there.
Yeah. You use
with the digital consoles, it's easy because the groups most have spill or rollout now. So when you hit the group, all those channels pop up and they're right there. Then you go back to mixing with groups again.
Yeah.
As opposed to looking through various faders for where those channels might be, they come to you, which is really a cool thing.
I think a lot of the new digital consoles too actually give you a representation of what your DCA or VCA is doing. It gives you
Right.
ghost faders underneath.
Yeah.
I know the console I mix on does, and that shows you the algorithmic scale that comes down nice and even. You know.
One thing I'd like to add in this is just a definition of what a subgroup is versus a DCA or a VCA, because they're
Go
not
for
the same. DCAs
Yeah.
will just raise the level or lower the level of the channels assigned to it. That's all they do. It's not a bus. The subgroup is a bus. So you're taking channels into what would, in essence, be a sub-mixer. So it's going to add level to it. So you got to be careful of that with your gain structure. It also has outputs if you want to route that mix to somewhere else. It also has the ability to be processed. So a subgroup can have a compressor on it or a limiter,
Mhm.
where DCA can't.
Right.
Yeah, a DCA and a VCA do not pass audio. They
No.
are only a remote control to the faders you assign to it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
some people have subgroups and DCAs on their board. They go, well, aren't they the same thing? No.
They're
If
not.
you want to compress your drum group, then you can use a subgroup for that, right?
Yeah. One last thing I want to mention before we forget about this, before I forget about this, is I love, and I mentioned this earlier, I love that you have a fader in your subs that says effects on it. So you're
Yeah.
using and so what I love about that is, me personally, I'm an effects just I'm insane about effects. Okay. I love using effects. And I love using more than one effect, because I feel like using a little bit of each creates a better impact than using just one and overusing it.
Right.
And so I'll use normally 3 verbs and 3 delays, and I'll assign them to different things and to different people and to different instruments. But what's nice is that I don't want to have to bring down 6 different faders in between songs when somebody's speaking in between
Mhm.
the song set. And
Right.
so having the one effects fader just allows you to have full control and not have to mute 6 different faders.
Well, most groups do have mutes on them too. So I can mute
Yeah.
6 effects at once too.
Right,
But,
exactly.
so that's another reason about mutes. Because why don't I just pull down the fader instead of using the mute? All right, you're going to put it back to exactly the same place it was
Exactly.
when you don't need it muted. It just keeps things in place, and then on, off, on, off.
Yes.